This is Toledo Symphony Lab, a behind-the-scenes look at the world of classical music from WGTE Public Media and your Toledo Symphony. I'm Brad Cresswell. Joining me in the studio today are the Toledo Symphony's president and CEO Zach Vassar and TSO Marketing Director Vanessa Gardner. Also on the phone with us, we have Principal Second Violin and Artistic Administrator Marwin Siu and the TSO's Music Director Elaine Trudell. Welcome, everybody.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Yeah, we are into 2021 right now. We have an interesting discussion today, continuing this idea of resolutions that we touched on last week, but we're giving it a different twist now. We're talking about resolutions in music. So this is all going to be about great endings, you know, whether they're happy, whether they're sad, whether they're melancholy. They come in all different flavors. We're going to talk about what great endings are for each of us, have a few examples as we go along. But I want to start with just a kind of a generic discussion of resolutions in music and what is it that excites you or interests you about how a piece of music ends. Zach, you want to start?
Well, there are, okay, so I would say it this way, as the layman here who, didn't go through a ton of music theory, I love sitting in the concert hall and seeing how a composer finishes a piece. It's like when an author is trying to write a book, how do they finish the novel? For composers, there are some really mechanical ways to do this, and then there's some really creative ways to do this. So we get into this idea of cadences.
Can you explain what a cadence is for listeners who may not know?
To paraphrase the Supreme Court, you know it when you hear it. And thank you. I thought I was going to get the buzzer on that one.
No.
It's the finale sounds when the chords kind of tell you that, oh, I feel like this is going to end soon. And that's true in popular music, and it's very true in classical music. Sometimes composers get creative with this and do things to make you think that it's ending, but then it doesn't, or it goes on for a couple other bursts of different chords that are all kind of steering toward the end. But what that creates is a sense of excitement, and you're very much in the moment. And it's like you're all in on the joke together. There are moments when, pieces have surprise endings, pieces have delayed endings. My dad used to get so excited when he would say, "Oh, you got to hear this piece. There's the finale, but then it keeps going." and it's not like we're talking about Tchaikovsky's Six, where you think it's over and then there's 12 more minutes of gushing music. It's the stuff where you have 20 seconds of bonus time. That's your deceptive cadence.
Yeah.
But it's a really interesting test of good composers. Some composers get it right very early. If you listen to Tchaikovsky's First Symphony, it's an amazing finale. But then you can also listen to early works by earlier composers, and you get to realize that in the Baroque times and even in the Renaissance times, they were playing with ways of ending works in a very creative way. So it became kind of a fingerprint for a lot of composers. Just as you have to figure out a good start, you have to find a creative way to end.
Yeah, all wonderful points. I mean, there's just a whole wide world of things that we can talk about when it comes to endings, but I do have some musical examples of favorite endings from a few of us, and I want to start with you, Merwin. We're going to play a little bit of like Drop the Needle at the very end of this piece, so I'm not going to say what it is. So just shout out when you hear what it is, when you figure out what it is. This is Merwin's first example.
You really have to ask about the tempo on this one.
Yeah, I had that too. It's the fast version.
Yeah. This is the fast version.
Well, I only had about 30 seconds, so I had to pick the fastest recording I could. Okay.
No, but
well, it's interesting.
There is a big pardon?
It's interesting because you were asking Zach kind of what he loves most about kind of musical endings. What I love is something to talk about after.
Yeah.
And with this one, there's probably as much to talk about in terms of this ending than there is in any other piece of classical music, and you heard it already. The esteemed members of our panel couldn't even wait to start talking about this piece. So.
I have two objections. Number one, we are not esteemed.
First of all, can we say what it was?
Shasti 5, yeah.
Yeah, Shostakovich's Fifth Symphony.
A piece that I am told Alain Trudel conducts very well, but he'll never play it for us. I don't know why.
Yeah, but this was on your list, Alain, and you said for its irony, not for musical reasons. Why did you put this on your list?
Well, by the end of it, it's okay. So first of all, Shostakovich wrote all this music that was very new and very challenging, and the piece just before that, the Lady Macbeth of the Minsk district, was something that Stalin heard and said, "Oh no, it's too elitist and it's not music for the people." And finally, in the Pravda, which means the truth, the paper, he was completely destroyed, and a bad review in Stalin days saying that you're writing music not for the people might send you in a gulag or get you killed. So he had to find a way to give his humble apologies to this symphony has the longest preface the title was in the humble understanding of a just critic of blah blah blah, and then finally he writes that, but at the end he writes, a lot of it is a mix of Carmen and Beethoven 5. And it's basically, you want this? I throw this in your face. You're happy now? Okay, we're done. And it basically, it's funny because before that, you can hide the third movement that's highly, emotional, and it's not, of course, it's not dissonant, but, it gets there. And even the beginning is almost serial. Mm-hmm. But as long as you get the ending that has big major chords, one after the other. And that's why, and I'm sorry, Merwin, that's why I like the fast version at the end. Because
I also love the fast version.
It's like in your face, thank you very much, good night. And that's one of the very rare instances that music is that almost ironically violent while being very enjoyable.
I also absolutely love the fast version, and I think that, and I think it's may or may not be particularly appropriate, but it's, to me, incredibly effective because it's almost like a slap in the face, or like kind of like, or running into a brick wall. I think I love that speed.
Yeah, I was thinking that if memory serves, that recording is actually the Concertgebouw Orchestra with Kurt Sanderling at the podium, actually.
They never amounted to much.
Yeah, right. That's why he'll never have a career. Let's play Merwin's next sample here, see if you recognize this.
I was going to say.
All right, well, you got it anyway. But that was that's from the Symphonie Fantastique.
But that's not the ending. That's the ending of the fourth movement.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we can do movement endings.
I was thinking of cadence. One of the kind of favorite cadences, and I just love this one because there's so much to talk about with it. It's all of a sudden, it's so incredibly literal in a way that really music has never been up until that point.
Yeah. Well, it's The March to the Scaffold is the title of the movement, and obviously the title character in his opium-infused dream gets beheaded at the end with the scaffold. So you hear the little pizzicato strings with the head falling down. Very macabre.
I always thought my head would weigh a lot more than a pizzicato.
Yeah, right? Very light.
Let that be the context-free highlight from this show, by the way.
Yeah.
But the last thought he has before that is idée fixe, right? That comes back in every movement. And that has not been played at all in that fourth moment. Which is, it's idée fixe that he has because he's so in love with this woman. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting that the last thought he has is that.
Well,
I thought idée fixe was a character in Asterix and Obelix.
idée fixe, or the fixed idea, sort of like Wagner with his leitmotifs. Yeah. Well, let's move on. Let's see if you can get this one, and this is a seasonal selection. Now you know what that
Quit
is.
Horsing around.
Quit horsing around. I like that. Very good. See, I'm trying to stay positive and give Zach, positive affirmation here.
I feel
it's
like
taking you 4 years, I see.
The ending of this tune can be just okay, but it can also be really hilarious depending on how into it the trumpet player gets with the whinny.
What was your reasoning behind this choice, Merwin?
I think, again, it's something for me that it's very personal. I mean, we play this so many times, and it's something that I feel like you're really getting a chance to establish a connection with an audience. And if everything goes really, really well, you can just feel the audience kind of get all warm and fuzzy on the inside as they listen to this, and then they have this little laugh at the end. It's a wonderful way to end a concert, and I think it's just, and when you're going to all of these different towns all throughout Ohio, it's just wonderful to kind of really get that chance to make that really special connection. So
the other
there's
thing,
something very personal about it to me.
I feel like, yes, it's always the end of a holiday pops concert, but for many of us, it's always the beginning of the holiday pop season. The first time we play Sleigh Ride, it's like, oh, now it's the holidays,
Yeah, we should mention that is Leroy Anderson's Sleigh Ride, which seems ubiquitous, during the Christmas season. That's like the quintessential classical piece when it comes to the holidays. Elaine and Zach, I want to go back to you guys. I don't have musical examples from you, but I have Elaine's list. And I assume on your list, Zach. Yeah,
it's a real surprise. I'm sorry.
Okay, I have to do it. Sorry, I had to go for the buzzer. Yeah,
but actually, Liz did have some nice endings.
But Elaine does have, I think 4 different Mahler selections on here. 3 or 4 Mahler selections, and we know, Zach, you're a Mahler file.
Yeah. I had 2 on my list. I had some Sibelius.
I could have easily come up with the remaining ones that they didn't have.
Just every Mahler ending.
And I think going to Mahler, he so you have to remember, he was a conductor more than a composer in his lifetime. He understood the dramatic impacts of the composition, especially with his time in the opera pit. So when he came into creating drama in Finale, it was going to be big, and he was also working with an enormously colorful palette. So he had all of these instruments and all of these ways of making sound. So I love what he did. Even in the Second Symphony, there are points of cadence in the first movement that keep going. They're these mind-blowing finales that you think, well, this must be the time to clap, and then he comes out with the chuntering bass to continue the movement. So he knew climax brilliantly. But for me, the best finale in Mahler will always be the Ninth Symphony.
The Ninth Symphony, which I don't think was on your list, Elaine. You had Mahler 2 and Mahler 6.
No, I have 2, 6, 9, and Das Lied.
Oh, okay.
So half the cycle.
It was a typo. Yeah.
Well, you just said Mahler, I'm not ready to go.
That was the 9th.
I guess that's the 9th.
Yeah.
I sent the Neratum after with the correction. It's 9th, yeah.
Oh, okay. So you do have the 9th.
So let me pass the microphone, the baton over to you. Alain, tell me, you have the exquisite opportunity to be surrounded by the orchestra at those final bars of the Mahler 9. Where are you when that symphony finishes, and what are you hearing?
Well, he's on the podium.
Well, the thing with the 9th is that it's really his last symphony. He started the 10th, and Das Lied we say is a symphony. But, it's a symphony, but it's a huge song cycle mostly. But the 9th, you can see that he's settling scores and the other movements. People said he couldn't really write serious music, so he writes a double, triple fugue in the what should be a scherzo movement and the third movement. He says goodbye to all of the dance movements in the second movement, going from a menuet to a landler, which is the contrary to a landler to a menuet, which is all the folk dances from his region. I wouldn't say his country, because he was a man without a country a little bit. And of course, the first movement starts with this irregular heartbeat that he has. So by the time we get to the fourth movement, what's left? It's this big au revoir, goodbye that he's obsessed with. He's obsessed with death. He died, for a composer who lived at a time where there were more medical advances, because, we think often of composers who died in the 18th century that died a little younger in their 30s. But for Mahler to die at 51, at the beginning of the 20th century, I mean, he had still so much more to say. You can hear in the first movement of the famous 10th that was not completed, that he would have gone in a way that probably agreed more with Schoenberg than Wagner. But in that ninth symphony, he's kind of, he sets the entire floor with flowers everywhere, trying to say goodbye, but not being ready to say goodbye, but saying goodbye but not ready. So it's not like the end of Das Lied von der Erde, the Songs of the Earth, where we really say farewell. D'Abschied, we say farewell, and there's kind of a readiness, and you're more at peace with it. So you have chords that are like, I don't want to get too complicated. And I have some good example for cadences later if you want. But but that one, at the end of that lead, it finishes, kind of, I wouldn't say optimistic, but it's more at peace with the chords that have 6 and chords that have 9, which are chords that are more positive, let's say. But the 9th finishes it keeps getting further and further away in the voices, and it keeps being more sparse and sparse, but the material itself doesn't want to be sparse, but he just puts holes everywhere. It's a little bit like he had a hole in his breathing as well. So it's incredibly, after starting this movement with the full strings, the full, you bare your soul, and then it disintegrates slowly as you go to the end. And the comments are very, very low and very high at the same time. It's really one of the most, that whole fourth moment, one of the most poignant example of humanity in music.
You're just giving us sort of a little glimpse at the world that Mahler creates with each of these symphonies, and this final symphony, certainly so. I want to jump over to Vanessa here, because she sent me a few examples. And actually, Vanessa, I'm going to start with your last one here. We'll start this and see if people recognize it.
So good.
You all know what that is. Vanessa, tell us what it is.
That's Pines of Rome.
Yeah, The Pines of Rome by Ottorino Respighi. Well, why did you choose this one?
Well, this one time at band camp.
Oh, hang on. I have some band camp music for you. Okay.
Way to change the mood there.
All right.
No, Respighi also wrote
Let's
this.
continue. This one time at band camp.
This one time at band camp, I was in junior high. I think I was in 7th grade, and I was just really getting into the French horn for the first time. And I walked into one of the high school band rehearsals of Pines of Rome. And obviously Pines of Rome is an orchestra piece, but, the high school band was working on it, and I had never heard it before. And I was just completely stunned by it. And I stood in the back of the auditorium and I was like, what is this piece? When do I get to play it? And that became my love affair with Pines of Rome. And then I went off to college, and I never got to play it until I graduated. And they called me back to sub in the orchestra. And at the end of the first rehearsal, we read through it. And I just burst into tears because it was like, finally, all these years later.
Yeah.
But it's just so amazing, so loud and bombastic. And it's just...
I remember when the Toulouse Symphony has performed this, and you have like trumpeters and all spread out all over the
Yes.
Up and down the
peristyle.
stairwells of the peristyle.
Yeah, really a thrilling experience.
360 degrees of music.
That's right.
Totally. Now, Vanessa, you also have a couple of other cuts here.
Yeah.
Let me play this one and see if folks get it.
Did I mention there was a theme?
Yeah.
The theme is not string quartet.
Nope.
Yeah.
Oh, my heart is absolutely racing.
I got to say, for those of you listening and Alain and Merwin on the phone, like watching Vanessa's eyes widen as she's listening to this in the studio.
Oh,
is
I'm
really
going to
great.
cry before this segment is over, for sure.
Wow.
It's just, it's so hard. It's so hard. I mean, that's just the end of the first opera. And
We're talking about the Ring Cycle by
Yes,
Wagner, right?
sorry, yes.
The first one is the Rheingold.
Yes.
Das.
And,
Yeah.
you know, Das Rheingold opens with this incredible wave, if you will, of the horn section. And it's so hard because it starts so low and then it just grows and grows and grows. And, you know, it's 4
Yeah.
hours long.
It's all the key of E flat major for
Yes.
the first 20 minutes.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is a
Fantastic.
very different reason than when I proposed Sleigh Ride.
Well, I do think there's something, I feel so much foreshadowing, but also hope and optimism, which is a little ironic if
Yeah.
you think about how the whole thing ends. But it's just so exciting to get through.
Let me play one of my choices here and see if you agree with this.
This is on my list.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it's a test of the conductor there. You can identify the conductor.
Also, every musician in the orchestra too.
Who's like
'cause-
on the edge of their
yeah, they're
seat.
like, wait, is it now? Is it now?
When do I breathe?
No, the nightmare scenario is that
Yeah.
you come in too early.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right, with that chord.
Never
sure.
be first.
Yeah, the ending of the Fifth Symphony of Jean Sibelius. Now, does anybody have an idea of who the conductor was in that recording?
Because you can really tell from that. Colin Davis.
No, but very close, actually. It was Leonard Bernstein. Yeah, it was not Alain Trudel.
Yeah, in
That's
London.
Yeah. I was just gonna say-
In London.
Yeah.
One of his many sojourns in London. Alain, have you conducted this piece?
No, I've done 2, 6, 7, 3, but and 5 is one. You know what I would love to do? I would love to do the original version of the Fifth.
It is
Yeah.
good.
This is
It
very
is.
neat what I'm saying, but it's very interesting. All those original versions are more like they're more raw a little bit. I mean, it doesn't get more raw than what we just heard, but I mean, the rest of the piece is more like the original theme, and then he kind of edulcorated it to make sure that it fit. But I in the last 3 years, I've learned to know and love Sibelius. I was not somebody who was really in love with Sibelius for the first many, many years of my career. And then I conducted, because the first one I did was the third, and I really didn't do it for me. And then I did number 6, and I went like, oh my God. And then 7, of course. 7 is one of my favorite pieces. I love the 7th Symphony. And 5th is amazing also. So, yep. So, look for it in Toledo in the future, not so far, because this is the kind of piece we're going to be able to do in the future, because they don't require immense orchestra, but they talk about immense, land, and it's very interesting.
Yeah, that's great. And I can't wait to see all the orchestra members quivering in their boots waiting for those last few chords.
As we talk about cadences, though, that symphony especially has me thinking about the composer just standing at the piano and like reconfiguring the chords and just delaying that sense of when we get back to home, and there are always like 3 more chords than I think when you're listening to the end of that symphony. But then when you get there, then everybody knows that's what a cadence is. So it's that gratification of coming back to the tonic, as they call it. And I love the way Sibelius ends things. We're talking about writers ending well. You compare the end of that symphony, which is amazing, a lot of drama going into the 30 seconds before that clip. But then you look at something like the violin concerto or Swan of Tuonela, where there are these sort of like eerie, shimmery chords that take you into the end, and you don't really know if it's ended or if you're just kind of suspended in the air. There's no sense of getting to a place. And that can be a really poetic ending as well. And I thought Sibelius did that really well in other pieces.
Yeah, totally. We've got just about a minute and a half left for the on-air version of the program. So very quick roundtable, just as fast as we can make it. Go around, name your favorite piece. If you have to pick number 1, I'm going to start with Dvorak Cello Concerto. What do you say, Vanessa?
Well, my favorite piece of all time is Alpine Symphony.
Sorry, we're talking about the finale.
Favorite ending.
Oh, well, that was not the question.
You're going to change your... You're going to change your answer? Okay. My favorite ending is Dvorak Cello Concerto. How about you, Vanessa?
Go with Pines of Rome.
I'm going to go for the Academic Festival Overture.
Merwin?
Messiaen's Quartet for the End of Time.
Alain?
The end of the opera Carmen.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah, no, but you have to be there, right?
You know, I sang the bus and truck tour of Carmen with New York City Opera back in the day. We actually performed in Ann Arbor. I did one of the shows as Don Jose. So I did that opera with a broken rib. I broke one of my ribs during the show.
Somehow that's appropriate for Carmen, though.
Yeah. And then I spent the rest of the tour fueled up on Tylenol 3 and booze. There was this whole thing of like, what you think it is and reality. What I thought it was I was just singing like I'd never sung before. I felt so relaxed. And in reality, I listened to the tape and I'm like, anyway.
Just make sure you pick up the right knife in the prop department.
Yeah, exactly.
So would that be a deceptive cadence where you thought you ended and how you truly ended?
This program is a production of WGTE Public Media in collaboration with our sponsor, the Toledo Symphony, with generous support from the Rita Barber Kern Foundation. You can download episodes of our program as a podcast by going to our website at wgte.org/lab. You can also subscribe to us through your podcast app of choice, including Apple and Google Podcasts. You can also find the TSO's streaming concerts online. That is at stream.artstoledo.com. My thanks to Zach Vassar, Vanessa Gardner, Merwin Sue, and Alain Trudel. I'm Brad Cresswell. You've been listening to Toledo Symphony Lab from FM 91.